Hey guys, this is Jim Casey, the Talk TV reporter, live in downtown Huntsville. Today I'm going to pick up a little bit from where I left off on my last broadcast, which is to say I'm going to count this as my first official broadcast, but I'm still doing some fine-tuning on the bit rates and the camera, and think I've got a good combination for broadcasting now. So this will be a little bit longer walk, maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes around in downtown Huntsville near the Depot Museum and the Veterans Memorial. I'm not doing a lot of homework for these walkabouts because what I want to do is just give you sort of an introduction to some of the things that are here in Huntsville. This is a great place to visit, and so I'm going to show it to you, and then hopefully if you do come and visit you'll be able to get additional information. The mission of what I'm doing, as a brief introduction, is to be in conjunction with my website, which is journalism. Talk TV is tocc.tv. I present news and information there and editorial comment, and I envision this walkabout series as being sort of a magazine, and I'm going to try to tell you a story, or a little bit of a story, or give you some of my own perspective. Now, that having been said, I'm going to well, let's first mention the weather. It's a cold day in Huntsville. It's only 40 degrees and there's a sharp wind blowing from the north. So if my eyes are watering, that's why. But it's still a nice day. I'm bundled up and quite warm. What I want to do is go ahead and start off where I pick up where I left off. So I'm actually turned in the wrong direction. I'm going to flip that camera now. There we go. And the reason is I want to get out here to this street. This is only about 3 blocks from downtown. And so what I want to tell you is that when I was talking about the ride share on bikes, I said you had to put them back in the same place. And that's not exactly true. If you go downtown or anywhere else and get one of the bikes on the ride share, there are, in some places in Huntsville, there are a few bike lanes. They're becoming more and more friendly toward bikes in Huntsville, even though it's more of an urbanized city. You can rent the bikes, and if you had rented one up on the square where I was on the last broadcast, you could have ridden it the 3 blocks down here to the Huntsville Depot, and you could leave it here if you wanted to while you went walking around. Now, in theory, of course, you've got to get back where you started somehow, but anyhow, you don't have to leave it exactly where you picked it up. When I looked on the internet to find out a little bit more information about it, I found out that there is an app called Motivator, something like that, I don't know. But you rent these for about $2 an hour. There's a deposit. An important thing you want to know is that if you do come to rent the bikes, they don't provide a helmet, but in Alabama, helmets are not required if you're over 16. So that's something you want to be aware of if that becomes a possibility for you. The first thing I'm going to look at over here is the north side of the Huntsville Depot Museum. This grounds and complex includes several different static displays outside. I'm going to be outside today. And of course, this is the replicated roundhouse, which is built. It's not in the same location. The original roundhouse, which I'll show you more or less where that was in a few minutes, was actually on the north side of the depot itself. But this replica is pretty good. The museum itself, the depot itself, is back over there. It's the yellow brick building. So aside from taking a quick look at the roundhouse here, the roundhouse, for those who don't know, is a place where they conduct repairs and maintenance on train engines and cars. And the original facility was built around 1860 as part of the Memphis to Charleston Railway. And now we're coming into the shadow of the Veterans Memorial. The Veterans Memorial in Huntsville, I have to wait for the crossing here, is a rather extensive memorial. This thing took a lot of thought and planning. In the beginning, I don't mind telling you, there were people who really thought this was quite an insult because of the location. But when you think about it, the insult is that it's located between this ramp, which goes up to the interstate, and the other ramp, which, well, that one comes off the interstate, and then the other ramp on that side goes up to the interstate. So it's really squeezed right in between. It's sort of an awkward location. But what starts off as an insult becomes really quite an ingenious idea, because it is right next door to the Huntsville Depot, so people who are touring can visit from there, and of course the parking lot is available. And it's also right on the parade route in Huntsville. If there's a parade in Huntsville, there's a 90% chance it's going to be along Monroe Street, and that is what this is. And of course what they do is they stage the parade, the Veterans Day Parade and the Christmas Parade here, and it's a really good location for that reason. The nerd in me wants to tell you too that it's a study in space efficiency, and as population grows and the world gets smaller, that's real important. Urban planners probably look at this and it's probably a trophy for them on those bases alone. So if it does start off as an insult, it ends up to be a really quite an ingenious idea. The monuments in this memorial are really fantastic. These bronze sculptures are very detailed, very lifelike. You can really get a sense of the action when you're looking at these guys. I'm going to start by coming back around to this side. There's a lot of nice appointments to the memorial, so I want to come back out here to the front, and I'm going to show you the entry, if you will, from the front. And of course it acknowledges the sacrifice that our veterans make, and this will give you a larger idea of the flags and the entire layout. I'll walk over in this direction. I'm going to go around back in through there in just a minute. The acknowledgement of the duty of our service members, and the Huntsville-Madison County Veterans Memorial Legacy Walk. The bricks that make up this sidewalk were purchased through donations, and includes the name of the people that made the donation. Some you'll see are in memory of, but not necessarily all of them are. And this exterior sidewalk extends around toward the back of the monument. Now over here, there's some more of the bronze statues. This one's very interesting. These guys are outfitted with the M16, I suppose, and their fancy glasses. This one's got the flashlight. These guys are combat ready, and apparently if you see the reality that they've been in a knockdown, drag-out, expressions on their faces. I'm not a veteran, although I sometimes wear camouflage, small amounts of camouflage, as you notice with my hat. My floppy hat is really just an expression of the best floppy hat I could get. Although there's an undertow because I don't really support uniforms in the public sector or for schools. So I don't give it much thought either way. The memorial acknowledges all of the wars that we've been in: Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo, citizen soldiers, all the men and women, Persian Gulf War, Panama, Lebanon, El Salvador, Bosnia. Freedom necessitates readiness for war, and that's unfortunately true. More of the wars, Vietnam War, Cuba, and the global war on terrorism, Afghanistan. I'm going to come back over this way in a little bit. Persian Gulf War, World War I. This feature is supposed to have water in it, but this is pretty interesting. It certainly does evoke thought to see these miniature tombstones where there would be water. Vietnam War, Korean War, Mexican War, World War II, and World War I. And there are more areas behind the memorial, which is not immediately obvious. There are lots of credits for lots of people who were involved in the wars and in the making the donations to make this memorial possible. Gold donors, different levels. Here's a shot up where you see the flags. It's not immediately obvious from the front of the memorial that there's a lot more behind the memorial, and that's part of the ingeniousness of the location. Patriotism. Because as we come around to the back, this memorial, when they put it in, this particular monument, is really very poignant. Again, you just really get the feel for the anguish, the urgency, the reverie and reverence. This medic, or another soldier, I'm not quite sure which, is applying to this individual, combat medic, for the combat medic. So there's some homework. And the area is adorned with many, many notations and citations. Continue to walk around and we get the placards here and some more of the educational information that you'd be interested in. Revolutionary War. Ezekiel Reynolds. I don't know who that is, but these are profiles. And you can see them here. Wounded Combat Veterans, Purple Heart Monument, Seminole Wars, Mexican Wars. A lot of information here, which is educational, commemorative, memorializing. Civil War, late Indian Wars, 1866 to 1890. Spanish-American War, Philippine insurrection. An aviator statue to honor specifically those people who are in the flying machines in the air. And this is almost something like a guy out of Top Gun. Some more of these. And so the ingeniousness again of this location is that when you walk toward the back area, you normally would not expect to see an area like this being in use. Gold Star family monuments. There was a time before the memorial went in that you would find homeless people under this bridge. More monuments. Revolutionary soldiers buried in Madison County, Alabama. Got a complete list right there. And you're literally under the bridge. And immediately behind the Huntsville Depot Museum. Originally, homeless people don't generally stay here anymore. Originally, I wasn't really going to include the Depot Museum or the grounds in this walkabout, but now I see that the grounds are open and there's some more interesting things to take a look at. Patriots Gateway, that's very nice. Visions of Vets, Patriotic Mosaic. This wonderful mosaic is made up of individual pictures. You can see the eagle and the flag, and then when we move in closer, you see it's made up of individual pictures of veterans, carefully and strategically placed. No problem. I'm live streaming, so I'll try to stay out of your way. And here's the other direction of the front side of the roundhouse, right there, and some buildings which would be reminiscent of the 1860s. The school kids come here and do tours in the building and on the outside, and of course have a large picnic area for them. Got some visitors today. And another of the mosaics. As you would expect, the Huntsville Depot is located next to the railroad tracks, and the occasional train does come through 3 or 4 times a day, actually. So I want to reminisce just a little bit because I used to work here for several years doing bookings and promotions. I was the coordinator in charge of the Fall Festival and the Spring Festival for 2 or 3 years. And so this brings back a lot of memories for me. This area is part of the original buildings. They have a gift shop and do admissions there. Some of the static displays have been renovated or are reconstructed. The caboose is open, and at one point you could do birthday parties here for young people usually, and that's a really fun thing to do. The caboose, I'm not the train expert, but I would say that's probably from the 50s and 60s. It's not particularly old, but You know, they eventually stopped using cabooses on the train as a gas-saving effort. Might as well get a look at this. Coal cars headed for Chattanooga or South Vicksburg, I suppose. And here's that door on the back side of the depot. Built in the early 1860s. Was a target during the Civil War. Some more of the static displays. Now, don't hold me to it. I think if my information is correct, this actually came up from Birmingham, the Birmingham rail station. So it may be an authentic piece, but it isn't necessarily from this exact facility. And I hope you can still have been able to hear me as the train was going by. And this is the building that is the now used as was a baggage area, I think they said, and now it's a gift shop and where you get your admissions for the tours in the museum. Typically the facility used to close during January and February, and these areas have been used for different things at different times. At one point the Huntsville Art League uses these rooms on this end of that building. And some more of the static displays. I never did know what the exact history on this was, although there are some people that could tell you. I'm sure the people who are train aficionados. It is a true train engine, referred to as a mule. Look me up on Twitch, I'm live streaming. Looks like I get caught in the trap here. I have to go back around to leave the area. But before I do, I'm gonna still walk over here and show where the ruins of the freight building are. The freight building was actually the first building that was part of the complex, finished in 1860 or 1861. It had come into disrepair and was finally burned down. It burned down, oh boy, let me think, in 2004 or 2006 or 2002, something like that, a long time ago. They had high hopes of renovating the building, but it's a logistical nightmare and was never a part of the museum complex because it's on the other side of the tracks, and the rail yard, as you see the train that was just passing by, is still an active rail yard. And in fact, so the foundation of the building is literally right in front of me, just barely on the other side of the tracks and on this side of the train. Those rocks filled in a lot of the building area right there. This platform was part of that building, and you can see they still offload a certain amount of freight here for whatever reason. So anyway, it was going to be a very difficult to include that as part of the museum, and it just never did happen. And finally, last January, I think it is, they excavated the ruins and took them out completely. So it's gone forever. It's a very sad thing. This is still an area where there are often festivals or companies have picnics and barbecues. The Whistle Stop tour had been here for many years, and I think this year or last year is the first time they've actually moved it to a new location. I think it was over in John Hunt Park, or it's going to be. Nickel Plate Road. Have no idea what this is about. It's fairly new from my perspective. I'm going to go back out the way I came in. This is referred to as the Automotive Building, And this was actually on a street. This would have been the front side of the building on Washington Street, maybe, before the interstate came through. And so this was actually a commercial business, I don't know, in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, something like that. And then when they renovated the building, it was included. All right, I can't see if I've got chatters or not. It does look like that one of the settings I had is that I found was image stabilization, and that seems to be doing a good job, even though my camera is not equipped with optical image stabilization. I'm still going to come on around the back side over here. Because there are a couple more things I want to show you. And that is, one thing is Gateway Park. And forgive me if I get this wrong, there's a monument in the park, which is really on the other side of this bridge. I'm not going to walk all the way up front today because I see I'm nearing the time I allotted. The monument is dedicated, I think it's Lilies of the Field for cancer victims. And that's a large area that's great for picnicking. This is a walking trail of sorts. It's called Gateway Greenway Park, and the reason is it's essentially the beginning of the Greenway system on the north end of town. The Greenway system is not extensive on this end of town. It really just goes from here into Big Spring Park and downtown, which is just 3 or 4 blocks south of me. But I'm also going to show you the area over there. That's the current skateboard park, and I'm not a skateboarder, but it looks like it's fairly involved, and certainly there are always kids there having a big time. They really seem to like it. And Huntsville just announced that they're going to build a new skateboard park, and I think there again that's going to be down at John Hunt Park, and it's going to be even bigger and have all the additional tricks and things that the skateboarders like. And then I'm going to come back and just take a look over in this direction. So there across the street where you see the flag waving is the City of Huntsville Bus Station complex. And if you do happen to come into town, if you happen to be on a Greyhound bus, the Greyhound buses also come here to stop here. Used to have a separate station for Greyhound, and of course they did some scaling back, and so now they have, I don't know how many it is per day that come in right there. There's a waiting area right there. But what I wanted to kind of point out is that building that you see right there that's open air, you can see the 2 shuttle buses, that's just about where the original turntable for the Huntsville Depot shops was actually located. The original turntable and the original roundhouse. I've seen pictures of it, and I believe it was a half round. It was larger than the one that has been replicated behind me, but it was not a full round. But it was a roundhouse with a turntable, and it was the headquarters for doing engine repairs and maintenance. So you can see that that too would have been a difficult thing to incorporate into this museum complex, and of course they didn't. On my website, TalkTV, TOCC.TV, I've got several articles about the Huntsville Museum, Huntsville Depot, and the Huntsville Depot Freight Building, including pictures when they immediately removed it and the earliest attempts to save it after the fire. I'm going to go ahead and continue the video till I walk back out front and show just a couple more of the plaques. Looks like my timing was pretty good. I'm going to come around behind here and show this monument again, because it's got a little better sunshine on it now. Homeland, family, patriot, and sacrifice. If you are able, save for them a place inside of you. And that's a good idea, to remember our veterans and to honor our veterans for the work that they do, making our country free and independent. We have a long history of battles, most of which we have prevailed, some of which were a no-win in some ways, like the Civil War. And I say that recognizing the cost and the sacrifice, which was so high. The Civil War was the deadliest war in American history, and I think that the numbers, if I get it right, were somewhere around 700,000, which is interesting because I like to note at this point that the COVID conspiracy has turned out to be just as deadly, but of course it isn't recognized as such. I beg to differ, but that's the way I see it. This is the other entrance that I didn't go through. There are actually two entrances and exits on the back of the memorial. Some more of the donors. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and come back around to the Legacy sidewalk, because look at all these bricks. All of these bricks were the donations. Whoops, there's some more. Names on all of those. And names on all of these. And back around, I'm facing south. And well, they've got benches here too, but they're kind of akin to the loafer spikes. It doesn't look real comfortable, but now I'm going to just sit down here for a minute. I'm Jim Casey. This has been a walkabout in downtown Huntsville in conjunction with my website. A magazine presentation, if you will, to tell a story, a little bit about Huntsville. Please do visit my website. The evolution of this series is not likely to be every week. I'm not an entertainer and I'm not a gamer. So the idea that I would be streaming for 3 or 4 hours a day, several times a week, is just not even a realistic possibility. And it's not really what I do. But I am going to look at some additional possibilities, maybe once a month, to maintain a presence and to get the technical know-how. And then at some point, I may be chasing ambulances and house fires, as the saying goes. But beyond that, there are other live news events that come up from time to time that won't be scheduled. And I'll be ready for that. Thanks for tuning in. Your donations are welcome, accepted, and will help to support an independent perspective on news and information, not necessarily the politically correct status quo of the mainstream news media. That's my mission, and that's what I hope to do, and that's what I'll continue to do. Thank you again. Have a good day, y'all.